What's up, everybody? This is Danny, and this is the comparison of the year. Everybody's been waiting for this one, the Galaxy S22 Ultra versus the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test these out in every condition, and we're going to see which one takes the camera crown for this year. I can't wait to do this one. Let's do it. Let's first start with the daytime pictures. I think we can safely say now that daytime photos are basically personal preference. The iPhone does give you deeper and richer blues in the sky. It's not accurate most of the time, but let's be real, I don't know if the average user actually cares about color accuracy anymore. On basically every blind test or poll that I've ever put up on Twitter or Instagram, the brightest and the most saturated picture wins. But if you do care about color accuracy, they do go back and forth. The iPhone most of the time creates the picture that is more contrast heavy, and in some shots it does make it look better for my taste, but then in some pictures like this water tower shot, it can really crush the shadows, making it look too dramatic. So if you like the lift in the shadows like you see in the trees here, you are definitely going to side with the S22 Ultra, and rightfully so. Look at this wide angle shot. The building and the foliage just pops. This is a drastic difference. Not all of them are this definitive though, like this one is much closer, but it can make landscape shots like this turn out better. Take a look at the trees, but the caveat is that it does come with the cost of highlight and exposure control like you see right here. The extra contrast on the iPhone helps tame the super bright areas of the image, like on this ultra wide shot. On this food shot from Epcot's Festival of the Arts, you can see it on the meringue. And I think this has a lot to do with the HDR processing. You can clearly see that this needs to be updated on the camera software. This could be intentional to create the brighter shot, you never know, but Samsung has come a long way in this department, so I'm thinking it just needs to be tuned, so I'm not going to focus too much on this. But if for some reason it doesn't get updated, you can see maybe why they went for this type of processing. A lot of people just love bright and vibrant photos, but for me personally, I like the overall control of an image, like on this croissant and on this plate. The clipping is noticeable on the S22 Ultra, so if this changes and improves after updates, I promise to revisit this. But if it doesn't get fixed in the future, this is something that definitely needs to be worked on. So Samsung, if you're watching this, please take note. Where the Galaxy S22 Ultra does have an advantage is the flexibility of the camera system, and while you may not use it all the time, the extra zoom range is really nice to have. They both have 3x optical zoom, which look nice on both, but that 10x zoom is pretty fantastic. But you can go wild up to 100x zoom if you need it. I never use this, but it's there if you need it. Here is one more zoom comparison. There is the main sensor. And then here is the 3x, which looks pretty standard on both. Then there is the 10x zoom versus the 10x digital zoom on the iPhone. And then here is a 30x zoom with the 15x max digital zoom on the iPhone. When it comes to pure resolution, the Galaxy S22 Ultra has a 108 megapixel sensor that you can take full advantage of. The only downside is sometimes you do lose dynamic range, but it's great to shoot landscape shots with. Here's a comparison against the 12 megapixel result of the iPhone. When you punch in 300% scale crop, you really can't see the detail difference at all, but when you go all the way into 1000% scale crop, you can see how much detail and sharpness is still retained on the S22 Ultra, and that is impressive. But respect to the iPhone, because that's 12 megapixels. That's hard to believe that it even kept up that well. Where I think Samsung has really improved is on portrait mode. That 3x portrait looks good on both, but you will notice that the focal length is different. The iPhone zoom is a little farther, so images will be closer up. You can really see that on this shot of me, and that is shot from the same distance. But I do have to say I love the heavier contrast and white balance on skin tones on the S22 Ultra. It does produce a more stylistic portrait shot, but I prefer it. The iPhone went super cool here on this one, where the Ultra did a really great job balancing the entire scene. Sometimes it can produce a really vibrant and oversaturated shot, but again, it's stylistic, filmic even. Just take a look at the background. While the iPhone is much brighter here, and you may like it better, but it does look overprocessed. In this shot, I think it will be preference. While the iPhone did roll off naturally, which I think a lot of people will love, Samsung kept all of the table and the components in focus, including the brushes on the back. So let me know which one that you prefer in the comment section below. When it comes to skin tones, it does go back and forth. Sometimes Samsung brightens the skin and adds more saturation, like on this shot, where I like the iPhone more on this one. And on this selfie, I like the control and skin replication on the S22 Ultra better, so it's much sharper. Some of this has to do with the white balance differences too, but in indoor conditions, I noticed that the iPhone does give the shots a brighter skin tone. I noticed that the Galaxy S22 Ultra this year likes to land on the warmer tones, and you can really see it here, and sometimes that can result in a better shot. Then sometimes the iPhone can land better skin tones, like on my daughter here. That is very accurate. So there is some inconsistency here on both sides. This is why the front-facing camera is also hard to call on which one is better. Here is a shot with the regular bin mode, and then here's a shot with the 40 megapixel mode on. I like them both, so during the day, just pick which one that you like most. If I had to pick a winner though, the S22 Ultra usually gave me the better results. And don't forget, you also have the ability to use the S Pen as a remote shutter, so you can set the phone down and get great portrait selfies from much farther away. So this is a major bonus. Like I said in the beginning of this video, they are both really great, so I think this is going to be preference-based, maybe more than ever this time. They both trade blows with giving you extra vibrancy, but I think it will come down to white balance and the general processing. Sometimes these cameras are so close they look exactly the same, but the white balance difference sometimes makes them two different images altogether. The S22 Ultra at this time loves to accentuate the warmer tones, so in dimly lit areas like inside restaurants really suffer from super warm photos. The sauce color doesn't even look remotely close, and it even made the chocolate look yellow, and the cream is actually pink like the iPhone shows it. And fluorescent lighting was the same inside the hotel as well, where the walls appeared cream, while the iPhone showed it stark white, which wasn't completely accurate either, but I bet that most would prefer that rendition, including myself. I could literally go on forever because I took almost 400 pictures for this comparison, but this is what makes this camera comparison so tough because things flip-flop so much. For instance, I think the S22 Ultra does a better job with flower and foliage shots. The tone, the control, the white balance, it just looks so much better in my opinion. But then I like how the iPhone brightens the overall image when it's gloomier outside, so this is almost the opposite of how it handles bright sunny conditions. So it all depends on where you live and what you actually take pictures of. Saturation is also cranked up by the iPhone when the sun is setting, so some of you might like that as well. No matter how you're feeling so far, I think the thing that you should take away from this comparison is not particularly which one is better, because they both have their faults and advantages. But if you're looking at buying a Samsung flagship today, appreciate how far their cameras have come. And I'm even seeing very similar performance when it comes to movement. I had my son run around a few times and I hit the shutter at the same time on each phone, and while I can confirm there's still shutter lag on the S22 Ultra, it's improving, so that's a good thing. So before we jump into low light, let's talk daytime video. The video reflects the same traits as the photos. If you look at the highlights, they are better controlled on the iPhone. Take a look at the water, the color is preserved, and there is clipping as well on the white clothing, as you can see here. Here is video from that gloomy day, and the iPhone does create the brighter video, a little bit more vibrancy in the plants that you can see down here. But what about detail on the 4K video? If you punch in 500% scale, you can see that the iPhone video is a little bit more detailed and less noisy, but where I can see it better is if you punch in 1000% scale. Look at the roof and you can see the sharpness and noise difference, and also the sideboard of the hotel is more defined on the iPhone. Of course, most people aren't going to do this. You don't have to punch in this much. This is just to show you the differences on a smaller screen so you can actually see it. The S22 Ultra can shoot an 8K resolution, which is incredible, but there is a pretty decent crop, which I don't like. But when you punch in, you can see that extra resolution difference right away, which I do like. Here's an example of walking stabilization on both phones. Let me know which one looks better. I'm not going to go into depth about the video capabilities here because I made a full dedicated video comparison for your convenience on just the video differences, including portrait mode video, so I will leave a link to that so you can watch it, and you should if you care about video recording. The one thing that I didn't include is the difference between super steady video and just the OIS on the iPhone, so here you go. Let me know if you can see a big difference or not of me running handheld. So let's jump into low light because I know this is where it counts, and I'm happy to say that I'm seeing some improvements in low light. I was really surprised with this one because usually the iPhone tends to create the image with more contrast, and on some shots it does happen. If you look at the sky, on these non-night mode shots, the sky tends to be pitch black on the iPhones, where you can still see some light on the S22 Ultra, which will be preference based for sure. And sometimes the Ultra creates the brighter picture with just single snap, but after looking at a ton of images, the iPhone is the one that brightens up the images at night. And this is a shot without night mode, and here it is with night mode. And they are for sure two different approaches. The brighter image generally allows the sky detail to come through, and you can see that, but that also allows more noise to be introduced, but the noise levels this year are improved. Punch in and you can see that oil painting kind of effect here on the S22 Ultra, but the noise isn't crazy. Kick in night mode and they both have different approaches to the scene. The iPhone with lighting up the entire scene, where Samsung goes with the more dramatic look. Punch in and you can see that Samsung defines the clouds better, where the iPhone is a little too aggressive with the noise reduction. This is a great example. Here by Mine Train at Magic Kingdom, this is a really dark area. This is without night mode, and when you punch in, you can see that there is way more noise again with that effect in the sky. But look at the image itself. It is more detailed, so I'm liking what I'm seeing here. And here's that same shot with night mode, and they both do a fantastic job of picking up more detail and reducing noise. Punch in, and now we are super close. So this is a major improvement from last year when I did the S21 Ultra comparison. Since the noise is now better controlled on the S22 Ultra, it's going to be about detail and color. And just like almost every Samsung smartphone at launch, you can see that it needs tuning. Just take a look at this detail part here. It's completely gone. The iPhone is also blending here, and losing some detail is just not as bad. Now with night mode kicked in on this ultra wide shot, you can see that Samsung has more cloud detail, which is very nice. And when you punch in, you can see it did a little bit better for the S22 Ultra here with that detail, but the iPhone now picking up all of the brick detail clearly on the main part in the tower. So naturally I expected this because the iPhone has been out for a longer time, so the software has had time to mature, so it's doing better. But here is the major kicker though. The exposure time on the iPhone, it exposed for 1 second, while the S22 Ultra exposed for 4 seconds. So yeah, the Ultra needs some tuning, which I think it will get over time. I don't want you to get the wrong idea though. It's not always like this. Again, it's like the daytime, it goes back and forth. This is another ultra wide shot. Look at how crushed the iPhone's image is, pretty much losing all of the detail on the right side. And then kick in night mode, and that extra exposure time of 3 seconds or more really brings out the details on the castle. So while it takes longer to expose sometimes, the outcome could be better. If the situation calls for it, then try out the 108 megapixel mode at night on the S22 Ultra. I don't think the benefits are as great as the daytime. While the Ultra's image is cleaner, the difference detail isn't as drastic. Now 108 megapixel mode supports night mode, which is awesome, but I just wish you could toggle this on and off. It just comes on when it sees fit. That's not very convenient, but when it hits, it's pretty awesome. Look at my son's jacket here. That's a notable difference. You get all the benefits of night mode with that extra resolution. Here is another one. Don't judge me, literally, I just couldn't get it to trigger unless I pointed it to the ground. This is 1000% scale crop, and look at how much detail is on the ground still. So this 108 megapixel night mode is a game changer. They just need to add a toggle to turn it on and off. Please, Samsung. But in saying that, most of the time you should probably just stick with the bin mode though. Yes, you're getting a lot more detail, but most of the time you need that extra brightness and bigger pixels at night. If you're a fan of extra saturation at night, then you're going to love the Galaxy S22 Ultra. Sometimes that saturation bump is subtle, like it is here, where again, the Ultra is leaning on the warmer side of white balance like it was during the day. Or it's super noticeable, like on this shot, the Ultra has more contrast and more saturated colors. So while it's not what I was seeing, I bet most people would pick that one to share any day of the week. Same here on these portrait mode shots, you're getting a lot more saturation, even though again, it might not be completely accurate, it just looks so much better. I'm betting again, if you gave people a choice, they would pick this gold replication from the S22 Ultra. Both are doing great with night portrait mode as well. So glad that they are there on these phones because when they trigger, they can produce some amazing results. Here is a shot with night portrait mode kicked in. both look great, but I'm liking the S22 Ultra better here. And what's cool is if you can get it to engage, which is tough because it needs to be really dark, you can actually take 3x night mode portraits. You can see the moon icon pop up. That's why I had to do a screen recording. I just couldn't take a picture with it because it just wasn't dark enough, but it is possible. Where the iPhone does a better job is with red color replication. In these shots where it's mixed in with other colors, it's not as noticeable, but the natural depth of field is getting so good on these smartphone cameras. It's just unreal sometimes. I can't believe that we can get images like this from our phones today. But the famous Coca-Cola building test, the Samsung fails for another year. Yes, it's T-Mobile Cola again. And even with night mode, things don't get much better, so I hope Samsung can pass this test next year. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Skin tones are also a toss-up at night. It all depends on the situation. Here on the iPhone, it casts a little bit more red on my wife's skin with an overall balanced approach, where on the Ultra, it kept it brighter, showing and picking up more dynamic lighting. In this scenario, the S22 Ultra decides to oversaturate me and be a little too warm, where on the iPhone, it's aggressive with removing that red tone with cooler white balance. In this one, the white balance is a little closer together, and while the iPhone's is a little too bright for me, I do like the skin tone better. So if I had to choose, I would go with the iPhone here. The front-facing camera can be pretty terrible for both at night. In this one, I don't like either of them. Just like most front-facing cameras, they both struggle really hard in extreme low light. The portrait mode is better on the S22 Ultra hands down because you have a night portrait mode on the front-facing camera too, which the iPhone doesn't have. The 40 megapixel mode is pretty good at night, so I was shooting this mode for just single snap. And here is a night mode shot from the front-facing cameras. So let me know which one that you like better in the comments below. So we will wrap up with nighttime video. I'm happy to say that the nighttime video is so much better on the Galaxy S22 Ultra. It's the best night video that they probably ever had. You remember how bad the S20 Ultra was, and there was some improvement with the 21 Ultra, but the improvement is definitely noticeable this year. But when you punch in, you can see that the iPhone's video is still cleaner and has much better noise reduction. People again get mad at me for saying that the iPhone is still the best at nighttime video, and the reason why I say that is because of how sharp the video remains while minimizing noise. This is a perfect example of how much the video has improved on the S22 Ultra. The water is very crisp and fluid. The potential is there. They just need to clean up the noise further from the video in the sky, so noise reduction improvements are definitely needed. But look at that water. It's so crisp. Here is some walking footage so you can see the stabilization at night, and they are both doing very well, but you can clearly see the light reflections on the iPhone, and that can get annoying, but otherwise the iPhone video is cleaner. One thing to note though, the castle is not predominantly purple as seen on the S22 Ultra. It's more accurate on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, so that's something to keep in mind. But that glass covering the sensor is working really well because in this light flare test, look at the difference. I am shocked. I usually see at least a little something on the Ultra, but in this one it is flare free. It's just so much red being picked up on that Samsung video though in this scenario. So let's see what happens after some software updates hit this phone. So this one is hard to call. It gets harder every year, but there's no doubt that Samsung has improved their camera system. It might not be a giant leap over the S21 Ultra, but is what Samsung needed to be competitive, and I'm happy to see that. If anything, the importance of having a more flexible camera system like having a night mode that can pair with 10x optical zoom at night can take your vacation experience to the next level. And while you may have to wait a little longer for exposure times, you can make these types of shots happen. While I think the video quality is still unmatched on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, in terms of photography, do we have a new king now? Are we safe to say that the S22 Ultra is the one to beat with the most flexible camera system on the market? At this time, I don't think it's definitely clear because there are some improvements that need to be made sooner than later, but showing this type of potential this early at launch and Samsung's history with camera updates throughout the year, this could easily be the best camera of the year. It's just up to Samsung and how they evolve the Galaxy S22 Ultra's processing, but there is no doubt that this is as close as it's ever been, and this is a major win for consumers. Subscribe for a lot more comparisons and tech videos just like this one. If you're new to the channel, then hit that thumbs up and catch up on all the fresh videos from smart home to smartphones, and I will see you in the next one.